Welcome to Sex in the News. We are the Siegel Brothers. Tonight we'll be looking at the cervix being sensitive, and surgeons need to acknowledge this part of women's pleasure. Fox News has been fined $1 million for sex harassment and retaliation claims, and an herbal extract is showing promise as a possible male contraceptive in animal trials. So, welcome back, my brother.
Welcome back to you. Good to see you again.
Interesting stories this evening.
Indeed,
this first one was
indeed.
really a mind blower for me.
You know, it runs counter to what we have been learning in this field going back to the very first book, Alfred Kinsey's book in 1948 or 52, I think.
Let me read the title again. It says, "The cervix is sensitive and surgeons need to acknowledge the part it plays in some women's pleasure." And yeah, like you said, we've always that dogma that sexuality educators have grown up with is that the upper 2/3 of the vagina and the cervix are relatively inert because that also serves as the birth canal, and birth is painful enough without there being a ton of nerve endings.
There's no sensation there. There's no feeling there.
It's all in the bottom of the vagina and the vulva. But we've also known, just in the course of counseling and sex therapy and teaching, that there are women who report they get the most pleasure. You know, part of that is only 25 or 30% of women who are capable of orgasm only from intercourse.
Only from intercourse, right.
But then there are those women that say they really get off on that deep penetration.
Thrusting. Right, exactly.
Deep thrusting.
Some even say hitting the cervix.
A head scratcher. Well, what are they feeling in there if it's all supposed to be kind of inert? So this is fascinating to me.
And again, it shows you how we can take a little nugget of something and run with it for so long. Because going back to this original, again, Alfred Kinsey is sort of the original researcher and set so many templates that we still follow today. And in his research in the late 1940s and early 1950s, when women had a thin probe inserted, that they were lightly scraping, gently scraping across the cervix, only about 5% of women said they felt it.
Kinsey came to the conclusion in his famous 1953 book, Sexual Response in the Human Female, quote, "All of the clinical and experimental data show that the surface of the cervix is the most completely insensitive part of the female genital anatomy."
Right.
And as Larry said, according to Kinsey's research, 5% of almost 900 women reported feeling anything when the cervix was stimulated. However, investigators in this new 21st century study stimulated the cervix with, quote, "distinct pressure," was the researchers' term.
And larger objects.
And a larger object. It found that 84% of approximately the same number of women reported that they could feel it.
Yep.
So apparently, Kinsey's conclusions did not take into account this this finding.
And it makes me wonder how much of this is connected to, on our Sex Talk with the Siegel Brothers, a while back we had a great conversation with a nurse practitioner, a doula, a midwife, right, Amy Gilliland, that we're talking about obstetric violence.
Right.
And I'm wondering how much the assumption that deep vaginal area, that cervical area in women has no sensation contributes to that attitude among OBs.
Yeah. And I'm also thinking that that's probably contributing to an awful, just the simple dilation contributes to a lot of the pain of childbirth.
Yes.
We could only imagine.
Right.
Right.
So this is good. This is another one of those reorientations.
Right.
Right. Especially learning about women's bodies.
One thing that I would say has been a trend in gynecology, especially gynecological surgery, I'm guessing since long before this kind of information has been brought to light, but still very helpful for women who have to undergo surgical treatments for maybe uterine cancers or endometriosis or things like that, that it used to be a radical hysterectomy. If there was a problem with the uterus, everything came out. The uterus, the cervix, the fallopian
Ovaries.
tubes, the ovaries. And now they can be very specific that if there's a problem with the uterus and it has to be removed, they can leave the ovaries. They can leave the cervix. And I'm sure that would offer an improvement, especially in terms of sexual function after something like a hysterectomy.
Yeah, and I can't help but think too, with this attitude that or this assumption that there's always been that the cervix really has no sensitivity to it. I can't help but wonder how many women, if they needed some kind of procedure where they may have had to cut the cervix, how many times that may have been done without any anesthetic, with the assumption that there's no sensation, so why bother?
Right. Biopsies for cervical cancer. Yikes.
So
Yeah.
so there's a lot of tender bits among all those tender bits that need to be taken into consideration. So I think this is a real good. Again, finally, here we are, 2021. We're finally starting to
Almost
realize
half a
that women's
century.
bodies may not work the way we always assumed they did. Right?
Yes.
So good for us.
Still learning about that mysterious internal anatomy.
Yeah.
Half a century later, since Masters and Johnson's work, and still most people, including most women, can't identify a clitoris when they see one on a diagram, which is just fundamentally sad for sexuality educators. Our next piece is
A little gratifying.
about Fox News being fined $1 million. It's, couch cushion change for them, but $1 million for sexual harassment and worse than that, retaliating against employees who reported sexual harassment. So even after, we're not supposed to speak ill of the dead, but that evil bastard Roger Ailes, even after he's dead and in the ground, things apparently have been slow to improve culturally there at Fox News.
Yeah, in spite of the fact that their president now is a woman, right? But there's still, by many accounts, the very similar climate that's there. You just don't have the Roger Ailes, Bill O'Reilly, the Sean Hannitys, kind of in the corner, obviously talking a lot of crap about women there, and it's probably not as much of an old boys club as it was. Right? But it's still not an easy place to work.
Yeah.
Right? And apparently this was in four separate decision categories, each one of them costing $250,000. Right? So hopefully this will put, again, $1 million in a multi-billion-dollar company may not have much of a sting, but it makes a point.
And they hope to deter bad behavior in the workplace, right? Which, of course, unfortunately, financial payments, especially to wealthy people, are often not a deterrent to breaking the law, but hopefully it's a step in the right direction.
Indeed.
And another on our ongoing fascination with sexological research in animal models.
Yes.
Right?
Which is where all of it starts.
Of course. Right? That's been part of the, I guess, it's a human arrogance in assuming superiority, that if something can help us understand ourselves and fight against disease in ourselves by messing with thousands of animals, that's how we do it.
But again, just I want to throw in there that the people that have always led the charge for ethical treatment of animals in research have been researchers. There have
Yeah.
been a few aberrations over the years, crashing monkey skulls just to test the limitations of helmets,
Yeah.
putting acid in rabbits' eyes just so you ladies can have makeup that may not irritate your skin. We've gotten way past all of that. None of that stuff is ever even allowed anymore.
Most animal research is done ethically wherever possible. So this was a study in mice and monkeys.
Yep, at UCLA.
Right. This is an old story. We've talked about it on Sex Talk with the Siegel Brothers before. And as long as we've been in this sexology business, there has been talk about the next male contraceptive method that's coming down the pipeline. And it's been a challenge for all these decades to find something that is effective and reversible.
Right.
That's the trick with male contraception. Usually we think of vasectomy, right? Which is it's reversible, but very, very delicate, very expensive.
Yeah.
Not a very high success kind of. Talking about teeny tiny tubes that were cut and tied off that have to be cut again and reattached. It's not always very easy to do. So this is a look at an herb called Tripterigium wilfordii.
Hook F.
Hook F.
Don't forget that.
Commonly known as thunder god root.
You gotta love that name.
Right. And the names that these things have acquired over the eons probably also give us a peek into their reputation.
But by the way, this had nothing to do with sex before this research. So the fact that this was thunder god root.
Not an aphrodisiac, it's a contraceptive.
Right. But again, nothing to do with sex at all.
Yeah.
I believe this was used for arthritis, right? Rheumatoid arthritis, and as an anti-inflammatory.
Yeah. Yes, this particular ingredient known as tryptonide in this Chinese herb.
Sounds a lot like kryptonite.
Right, that's what I thought when I read it. There is also always the prospect that if something does show promise and does move into the marketplace, it's not under the purview of the FDA.
Right.
So it'll be another of these supplements, which are by and large unregulated. So, we're not looking at something that within a year or two there'll be a great announcement that men can take a pill and not have to worry about impregnating.
And it's also worth mentioning, because I think you just made a really important point as well, that this product, this herb, is on the market. It's been out there. This is not anything new. What is new is the isolation of this one compound in that herbal product that is effective. Before they were able to isolate the tryptonide, they were looking at, I think, 10 or 12 other compounds in that herb. Right? And none of them did anything. So they were able to isolate this, concentrate this, use an extract of it, which has nothing to do with what you would get in a sort of whole form product, like an herbal product. So don't go out and buy thunder god root and think that you're going to be preventing pregnancy or contraception. This has nothing to do with the product that is available on the market.
But they will continue to do research, and if promising, they plan to start human clinical trials. So
the fact that this is promising in rats and monkeys whose testicles work almost identical to ours, and their sperm production is almost identical to ours, so this is a good promise. It really is. Right? We've been waiting for something. There's been things in the pike for 30 years that have just never seen the light of day. Right? Hopefully this could be one. Right? And now for the first time in 5,000 years, men would finally have another option for birth control other than condoms and, of course, like you mentioned, vasectomies.
Yeah, or pulling out, which most guys suck at.
Yeah.
Or just lie and promise to, and than say things like, "Oh, well, you're so fine, I couldn't control myself," you know.
Or the fact that, the reality is most guys don't have any real sensations associating with orgasm except orgasm. Most guys, when they feel like they are about to come, they already are.
Yeah.
Right? So there's an important lesson in all of that too. So again, another option is always a good thing.
Monkey balls.
And to sort of bring this for a close, our one of our favorite pieces is something that we like to call poetic justice. Right? This is our opportunity to call out sexual hypocrisy, sexual stupidity, and just those things that just make you ask, WTF. Right? We've got an interesting one this week.
Mm-hmm. A South Carolina mother catches son watching porn and calls 911.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Right? Now, I like the first paragraph in this particular article.
Yeah.
Right? It says, an unnamed woman in South Carolina called the authorities this week because her 15-year-old son was acting totally normal. Right? Now, apparently what had happened was this 15-year-old boy was, I guess, hanging out at home. The 2-year-old daughter was home, and he was, I guess, in the den, the TV room, wherever they were watching TV, and he was watching porn. I guess when he heard his mom coming in, he just bolted up into his room and just left the TV on with, I think, the kid in the room. Right? And I think she was when the mom, oh no, he told the mother that the 2-year-old daughter turned on the TV and porn was just on.
I don't. How did that get there?
Yeah. All right. Now, the reason that this is our poetic justice, right, is because, mom came home, there was porn on the TV.
I'm sure she was upset.
She's probably upset, yes, but she called 911. She called the police on her 15-year-old son for watching porn. And she specifically requested, right, that the police file a report so that she can document this behavior. Right? She wanted a report to be done to document her son's behavior, and due to her daughter being exposed to porn. She also wanted that on file too. Right? So she can have somebody to blame, if her daughter doesn't have the relationship she wants her to have.
So our mom here is our target for poetic justice, but there is a hero to the story. Lieutenant Kevin Bobo, the sheriff's office deputy, who did not make an arrest or a citation because, quote, I don't know any South Carolina law that was broken. And when asked, is it unusual for a mama to call the police on teenagers looking at porn? Yeah, it is, Bobo said.
Yes. So
this unnamed South Carolina mom.
Mm-hmm. For calling the police because your son watched porn, you get this week's honor of poetic justice. And that gives you our traditional salute. So to you, Mom.
That'll do it for this week's Sex in the News. We'll see you next Sunday. We are the Siegel Brothers.